Hail, hail, the witch is dead. Witch, old witch, the wicked witch. Hail, hail, the wicked witch is dead. Hail, hail, the witch is dead. Witch, old witch, the wicked witch. Hail, hail, the wicked witch is dead.
Panthères, oh mon Dieu, des lions, des tigres et des panthères, oh mon Dieu, des lions, des tigres et des panthères, oh mon Dieu.
Und das merkt dir, mein feines Kind. Es ist wahr, ich kann leider hier nicht auf dich lauern. Aber hüte dich, kreuze nie meinen Weg. Wenn du es wagst, dann gehörst du mir, mein kleines Schätzchen, und dein Hund.
1, 2, 3.
Just to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Why, oh, why can't
It all started when my mother and I went to go see Disney on Ice. I was captivated by the thought of bringing animated characters to life on a live stage. In Disney on Ice, they use wonderful costumes and special effects, all presented live to you with a recorded soundtrack. I used this idea in my John Donovan productions. And so, we had to record the soundtrack first, and then later would play it back when we actually performed the play live in front of a studio audience. Now in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, we had used the Disney read-alongs as the scripts. They lent themselves easily because they are, after all, audio productions. And so Shell recorded the first page, which was the intro, and I did scene 2, which was the cyclone.
Dorothy and her little dog Toto lived in a small farm in Kansas. She loved Toto very much, and they had played together all the time.
We must get the cellar, Toto.
This storybook is about half the length of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs book. And so, instead of a 25-minute feature, such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Wizard of Oz was turning out to be only a 10-minute feature. Well, the answer came in the form of the 50th anniversary MGM adaptation of The Wizard of Oz storybook. This storybook lent itself easily to becoming an audio production. We first recorded the narration, narrated by Michelle Mancuso, and then Jan Mancuso, Michelle Mancuso, and I portrayed our characters through our audio recordings.
Oh, I had some very, very memorable parts. Let me see. Oh, they were so memorable. Let's see. The Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Witch. Oh, those are excellent characters. Very memorable. I'm sure you remember yours too, right offhand, right?
I think I played Dorothy.
Oh. No, you were a lot better looking than Dorothy. What else?
Oh, I played the Tin Man, I played Glinda, and I played Auntie
I can see they were very memorable for you too. They come
Yes,
right
they
off the
were.
top of your head.
I love being Glinda.
Well, pretty much my singing was Wow, just awful because I wanted it to be awful. Let's just make that the point. I wanted it to be awful. Because believe me, if I wanted to sing, you would have heard it beautiful. Simply beautiful. I think I did such a wonderful job, I could have got paid for it. I could have got paid, you know, at least scale.
I just cannot do Dorothy's parts. I think it was because I could do the high falsetto but not a low falsetto. And Dorothy's is a very much a rich alto because of Judy Garland's voice. And so Over the Rainbow, I just could not do that song.
Oh, he probably broke many cassette players while trying to record it. Stop it, go, stop, no, go back, stop, go, one more time, back, forth, back, forth.
Out the recording session, it was a nightmare.
Such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, when hi-ho all of a sudden became hey-ho, The Wizard of Oz presented itself with some easy targets.
Which matched my persona, Shout might say. I wasn't a witch, I was
She's a bitch.
Due to the limitations of the recording of the cassette tape, unfortunately some of the scenes in The Wizard of Oz had to be cut, such as the Merry Old Land of Oz was shortened, taking out the middle segments of the song, and also at the end, the finale music had to be shortened as well by a few seconds. Now that the audio was done for the production, the next step was the visuals. And so we began to make the props for The Wizard of Oz.
Very cheap, very cheap.
Very uncomfortable because they just kept falling apart with the 99-cent store tape.
Yes. You could at least pay $2 and maybe it would have stuck on better.
Dorothy's dress was the first costume to ever be actually sewn together. All the rest of them are just pinned together. But Mom helped me a lot with that, and we cut out all the pieces, we measured it, I helped do stuff, you know. But it's still a t-shirt, but it's pretty good for a t-shirt. Shell was all like, you can't be Dorothy, because one, you have hairy legs, and two, you don't have a wig. And I was like, I have a wig. And she's like, you have a wig. And I showed them the wig. The ruby slippers were just one of my socks, and I had used fabric paint to paint them, and they look really good, I have to say. I had done that earlier with Snow White's shoes as well.
They were just colored red.
I think they would have looked a little. I think they would have looked a little better if Dorothy would have shaved his legs.
That would be a helpful. That kind of threw off the little thing of
because you really wasn't focusing on the shoes. You were focusing on the hairy legs.
Yeah, he was too tall, legs. Yeah.
Glenda's dress, Shell's costume, that took a lot of time, and to make it look like the actual Billy Burt dress, what I had to do was I had to get like fabric glitter and like put it on it, and it's a sheer fabric, so it would just go through. So what I had to do was like put on like foil, like put foil underneath of the fabric and then paint it on there and be looking at one of the stills from the movie and then to make sure that it looked exactly like it. That was really hard.
I don't really remember Glenda being painted, her outfit. I just remember it being nice and pink.
The Wicked Witch of the West's costume is possibly the easiest to both change out of quickly and also the easiest to make. The costume was simple. It was just 3 different pieces: a hat, a cape, and a nose. To go along with this costume pieces, we also had the broomstick. The Tin Man's costume consisted of many cardboard cutouts such as these that were then spray painted a metallic color. Little attention to detail such as the screws on the arm plates and also leg plates are not so much visible to the audience, but still are there. These individual plates, when combined with other ones and taped together on any of the joints on the body, would create a 3-dimensional prop such as a leg joint, an arm joint, or a shoulder joint. The other prop that was created for the Tin Man was his axe. The top of it was just cardboard, again, hand-painted metallic silver, and the bottom part was really easy to make. It's actually just the roll underneath any kind of wrapping paper roll that you buy.
Well, I think the Tin Man costume would just fall apart, like his arms would fall off and while you're trying to perform.
But yours was the best costume, I think. I think if anything, the lion was the worst costume. All she had was a pair of ears and a mane.
I think Dorothy was the best costume.
Dorothy was the best costume.
And guess who wore that?
The prettiest one of all.
Well, I guess none of us in this room.
This is probably one of the biggest special effects that was used in The Wizard of Oz. And it actually also received a round of applause once it had finished. And what it was a three-dimensional replica of Dorothy Gale's farmhouse. As you can see here, there was great detail and intricateness that went into the making of the house. The house is three-dimensional, as you can see all sides, and when tied up with wires, it was flown across the stage.
I enjoyed the house because it really made it look like, real.
And for the Yellow Brick Road, I really did not know what I was going to do with that. I had originally thought that maybe it was going to be like just some lighting effect. In the end, I ended up taping poster board together and making a master brick and then like tracing it.
As you can see here in the original Oz head, there is great artistic detail in the face, the shadowing, and also the eyes. The eyes are actually a cutout. On the back, they have been taped in a half circle so that, given the illusion that there is depth, because the eyes have been cut out, and then there is the green of the eye in the background. This illusion was actually inspired by the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland. When you're walking down the many corridors of portraits, there are statues at the end that appear to be following you with their eyes. Now, if the wizard had two pupils right here in the center, and you moved away from the wizard, it would give the illusion of him following you with his eyes. But yet another great technique that, from a distance, the audience couldn't really appreciate. To give the illusion of real fire in the Wizard's throne room, a new special effect had to be created for John Donovan Productions. This was not a new special effect by any means, but it was the first time that we had ever used it in one of our productions. A flame bulb was tied to the center of a fan. The table fans were pointed upward, and tissue cut out like flames were taped to the top of the fan. When the fan turned on, the tissue would blow in the wind. The light that was in the center of the fan would illuminate the white tissue. When all the lights were off, voila! You had a flaming torch. None of our actors have wings, so what we had to do was we put it on around the actor's arms. Gabriella Partridge actually portrayed the flying monkey in The Wizard of Oz. Under all of the two layers of feathers, there is a handle right here that slips onto one's arm. When slipped onto the arm, it slides all the way down and you grasp the bottom of it.
There were several iconic showpieces that would be created as exact replicas of their film counterparts. However, some show elements would be borrowed from other current or past productions. In turn, some of the Oz props would be reused.
about the premiere of The Wizard of Oz was that Judy Garland and I were both the same age when we portrayed Dorothy Gale. Judy Garland was 17 in 1939, and I was 17 in 2003.
In the premiere, I had forgotten the soundtrack, and so I was like frantically calling Mom because she was supposed to be coming to the premiere. I was so scared that she would forget it, and I called her right away, and I told her, you know, Mom, please, don't forget to bring the soundtrack because I really need it. And then she's like, well, I don't know what tape it is. I just told her, well, bring the whole, you know, all my whole entire tapes. And so she brought all of them, and thankfully it was in there. So we couldn't start until like, gosh, it was almost like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and we had told them that we were going to start at like 5, and so the audience was getting impatient.
You had to wait hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Did I say hours already? I think I did. Before it would even start.
We almost lost our audience.
People were falling asleep. Papa was like, go off 10 times to the bathroom, back and forth. Oh well.
We couldn't find Grandma because she went to bed.
He was always making movies, different plays, and he was a good producer as far as that goes. And he made some very good movies and so forth and so on. And as time went on, he even went to make some plays with his cousins, and they were real good as far as I could see. So he gave us a lot of joyful times, and I'm glad that he did do that, and because I liked it quite a bit.
The costumes, they were like falling apart at the last minute, and we couldn't get them pinned together, and like during like different intermissions of the scenes, like we'd be like Jan and Shellen and I would be in the bathroom, and we'd be like pinning the costumes together, and we'd be like taking like 10 minutes, and the audience would be waiting for us. That was really bad.
Everything would fall down still with the cheap tape.
And Grandma would be yelling because
Holes in the wall.
Holes in the wall.
And there's still some tape left and on the ceiling.
And the living room's a mess, and she's upset, you know.
With The Wizard of Oz, another pioneering thing I guess you could say about it was that was the first play to actually use like a lamp and then put on like colored plastic over it to make the scenes light up, because in Snow White we had used a flashlight and that did not have very good lighting. When Dorothy and the Tin Man are entering the lion's forest, behind one of the trees, Jan was like doing this strip act as the lion. It was so funny. And then later, she was like making the witch pick her nose, and like she's looking at her crystal ball and she's picking her nose, and it was just really funny.
I really don't remember stripping. Really? I don't think. No, never mind.
Well, I wasn't too shocked to see John in a wig and a dress.
That's nothing new.
That's just something I think he always could wear.
For the Munchkins, I think I probably did want Shell and Jan originally to be the Munchkins. They were the voices of them, but in the actual play, my sisters, Brianna, Nikki, and Gabby, played the Munchkins. They were good.
I don't know.
Oh, she didn't let us use Ziggy. That kind of upset me.
Because he couldn't come in.
Because I really wanted a real dog as Toto.
You know what's interesting is that we had recorded Snow White, the Wizard of Oz, and the Pinocchio soundtracks all before the first play was ever premiered. So that's kind of interesting, because we had been recording all these soundtracks, but yet we hadn't even done any of the plays yet. So this was, The Wizard of Oz was the second play to be released.
For the premiere of The Wizard of Oz, there were 3 different commemorative merchandise items available. The first one was a commemorative cassette, which had the storyteller as narrated by my grandpa. The second item was a $3.50 commemorative soundtrack. The last item to be available was this $4 commemorative book.
This commemorative book was to be the last Classic Exclusives publishing until half a decade later. The book featured full-color pre-production photos and stills from the premiere, as well as Wizard of Oz trivia and autobiographies. The re-release of this original book was the inspiration for the 5th anniversary film release. Wanting to keep with tradition of celebrating the theatrical performance's anniversaries, plans were in the beginning stages for a slideshow film inspired by the use of simple digital enhancements on the book's pictures and narrative to accompany the photos. One of the original copies of this commemorative book opens the Wizard of Oz 5th anniversary film release. The camera pans in and the book magically opens, keeping in line with another tradition of starting all John Donovan productions with a storybook. The theatrical soundtrack was the first John Donovan production to ever be released on compact disc. This CD release was also the first time that dialogue recordings direct from the soundtrack were available to the general public, making this the longest audio release of a production. Each of the slimline CD cases were handmade, specially designed for the soundtrack's release. The inside cover features a personal dedication from John Donovan. The artwork featured on the CD release are from the 1939 film, because the CD was sold on opening night and no photos had yet been taken of the performance. The story of The Wizard of Oz, as narrated by Joseph Aguilar, was one of many storytellers that were produced during the early 2000s. The cassette tape release also included selections from the theatrical soundtrack. The Disney book heard in this cassette was originally going to be used as the theatrical performance's script. Ironically, the book adaptation of the 1939 film that was eventually used as the working script for the performance was tested as the storyteller with Joseph Aguilar narrating.
In 2007, I had the wonderful idea to celebrate the Wizard of Oz's 5th anniversary, which was coming up in the later year of 2008. However, unfortunately, unlike Snow and the Seven Dwarfs, we could not celebrate the play by re-releasing the production back into theaters. So, the next best thing was in the planning stages. I was going to create a slideshow using the storyteller that my grandpa had narrated and using the premiere's photographs. Unfortunately, once the production was finished, it seemed of low quality and also seemed too short. And so, the biggest ambition that John Donovan Productions has ever endeavored began. It was early in 2008 that John Donovan Productions began to restore the original photographs from the Wizard of Oz premiere, restore the soundtrack, and also begin to edit it into a film release. The standard of the day on which all John Donovan productions had been recorded was on an analog cassette tape. Due to limitations of mixing layers on an analog cassette tape, the ingenious method of having one stereo play our background music and the other stereo recording our live performance was used when recording our plays at soundtracks. However, now, with the advent of new technology in John Donovan Productions, it is now possible to digitally transfer these analog cassette tapes into digital sound files.
The sound files are isolated and edited for noise and distortion inherent in the original recordings. The remastered audio file is then digitally combined with music and effects tracks. The finished soundtrack is given a stereo mix, creating the first surround sound John Donovan production.
Aren't you forgetting about the ruby slipper? Oh, by my time, but I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Ha 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 ha! Which is the way back to Kansas? I want to go home, and I can't go the way I came. That's true. The only person whom I know would be the great and wonderful Wizard of Oz himself. forgetting about the ruby slipper. All right. Oh, bide my time, but I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Which is the way back to Kansas? I want to go home, and I can't go the way I came. That's true. The only person who might know would be the great and wonderful Wizard of Oz herself.
I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you?
I am Dorothy.
I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you?
I am Dorothy.
For the 5th anniversary of The Wizard of Oz, several of the segments that were cut out in the original premiere due to time length have been re-added for this 5th anniversary special edition film, such as the Merry Land of Oz. The middle segment of music that had been taken out from the original premiere have been re-added back in for this film release. Also, several of the songs have been restored to its original brilliance. After a digitally edited soundtrack was completed for The Wizard of Oz 5th Anniversary Edition, the next step was to find and transfer all photos into digital files.
Many of the photographs are heavily scratched or damaged. These pictures are transferred digitally, where they can be edited and remastered without ever touching the priceless originals.
Wow, the pictures weren't that great either.
No? Well, it's because I'm not in most of them. That's why.
Oh, that would have been
Well,
even
maybe
better
if
you
the
were
shots-
just in them.
Maybe
It was just you.
you needed a better photographer to take better pictures of us.
Well, she likes to cut off people's heads.
And put fingers in there.
Yes, and put fingers in there. So a lot of the videos had to be edited, obviously.
Because the stills from The Wizard of Oz are photographed with a flash camera, sometimes unintentional distractions are visible in the background. To keep the audience's attention on the subject, the backgrounds in all of the production's photographs have been enhanced with a distortion or blur effect. Here is an example of an original still's progression to digital effect.
Because The Wizard of Oz, the 5th anniversary film release, relies solely on photographic memories, many of the special effects that were performed live at the original 2003 premiere were unable to be captured by the still photographers, and so animation had to be created to create special effects for The Wizard of Oz film release.
The animation process is created when stills are put in sequential order and played back at 24 frames per second.
After all of the audio and photo sources have been restored, it was now time to place the photos in sequential order and time them to the soundtrack. At the end of each original John Donovan production premiere, a pre-recorded exit and credit spiel would play, announcing who portrayed what character. For the 5th anniversary film release, digital credits have been created, making this exit spiel the only original scene to be cut out from the 5th anniversary film release. Premiering in the summer of 2008, The Wizard of Oz, the 5th anniversary edition, became the first full-length feature film to ever be released by John Donovan Productions.
Very embarrassed. Still about it.
Yes.
To find it on.
I was just so embarrassed when I saw it on YouTube. I just couldn't get over it.
It's on YouTube?
Yes.
I don't know who
I
would watch. Some people must be sick to be watching this. What can I say? Well, all my parts were done excellent, I would say. I gave it, wow, 120%. I don't know how I could have given 120%, but let's just say I did. Without me, the play would have been disaster. I had all the best parts.
It was nice to be with him for those actions that he was producing. So all by lonesome. He's a real talented kid, as far as I'm concerned.
I had all the best costumes. I hate to keep on going on, but I was the play.
John Donovan Productions presents The Wizard of Oz succeeded, despite its chaotic beginnings. And now, in 2008, we have the opportunity to celebrate this achievement in the 5th anniversary of The Wizard of Oz. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to the reminiscences of those that helped to create this entertainment experience a reality, and that the next time you watch the 5th anniversary of The Wizard of Oz, you'll remember the collaborative efforts that made this landmark production. I had fun
I think
making
we're
it.
off to see the wizard.
Are we off to see the wizard?
No.
I think we're off to see the wizard. So, for everyone else, we hope that you enjoy the DVD.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a whiz of a whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever, oh ever a whiz there was.
The Wizard of Oz is one because
Because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Oh, I just love working on all the plays, but the best ones were when I wasn't in them, and I could just watch them and enjoy them out in the audience.